I would propose that we take a 10-minute break at this point and reserve any closing activities, committee reports, future agenda items, but also the discussion of the property tax exemption for commercial and industrial businesses to be discussed right after the break. City Council meeting back to order. Our next item agenda and before committee reports is the beginning of a discussion regarding property tax exemption for commercial and industrial businesses. Mayor Lovett had included in the packet a little bit of background information. This particular authority for a property tax exemption was previously limited to a community in the North Country. And now, thanks to questions and people lobbying for the effort in Concord, this is now statewide. In basic terms, it would mean that the council can approve a program that would provide a property tax exemption up to 50% of the increase in value as would be represented by improvements, enhancements, or other betterments on a piece of property within Claremont. It could also apply totally to new construction. The exemption would be for a period not to exceed 10 years. The way the statute is written, the council could approve it by itself as a legislative body, or we could vote to put it on the ballot in November. But I seriously think we might be running afoul of time considerations for that. That's an item I hadn't yet had an opportunity to check. Both Mayor Lovett and I agree that this is a terribly important discussion that we ought to have for economic development reasons. We presently have a TIF district. We had approved 79E, which gave a property tax exemption to historic buildings as they were improved in value. And this is yet another thing coming before us from the state of New Hampshire through the legislature. It was passed in June and became effective at the end of August. There are some communities in the state that have jumped on this, but I think for our purposes, we need to have a thorough discussion of pros and cons. The devil is always in the details that somebody doesn't talk about. So, questions from the council first, and then I'd like to turn it over to City Manager McNutt. Yes, Councilor Kolosky.
Is there a timeline or a sense of urgency to have this done, or like is there a window of opportunity to adopt this, or is
No.
no?
No.
Okay.
No, the only thing referenced within the statute, and I could serve to be corrected if I'm wrong, it does reference that if a community adopts this, a property owner who is seeking to qualify for an exemption has to do it before the beginning of a new tax year. In other words, December 31st. So that's the only, pardon me?
April 1st is the new tax.
April 1st. But aside from that one date being at play within the statute, that's it. Yes?
Is city administration prepared with some proposal for us this evening?
No. We are asking, the mayor and I would be asking, and hope everyone would agree, that by our second meeting in the month of September, we would hope to have a proposal, again, pros and cons, coming from City Manager McNutt and Director Nancy Merrill regarding their feelings and their proposals, what they would have us do and recommend to us. This is here solely for the beginning of the discussion. There is no formal proposal. This would be really getting a sense from the city and a sense from the council where and what we would expect regarding this particular new proposal for a property tax exemption. Yes, Mr. Councilor Kolosky.
I was going to make a motion to table so we can continue this to another meeting. I don't think there's enough information before us tonight to even start a preliminary discussion on it, except for, I mean, there's a link that every counselor can go read, but I would make a motion to table.
Motion to table to a time specific, or?
That's a good question.
Before we did that motion, I had a couple questions to gather some information I'd like to have brought.
I believe a motion to table takes
would end
precedent.
the conversation.
Yeah,
Needs a second.
he needs a second to be effective. Is there a second to Councilor Kloski's motion to table? Seeing none, the motion fails. Councilor Pope.
I'll agree with his motion in a minute, but the thing I wanted to ask for is, in preparation for that meeting, it'd be important to have the RSA. I've got the RSA, or the bill, the House bill, in front of me.
Yeah.
That's easy enough, but it references several RSAs. So it'd be good to at least get some of that reference, and maybe the House bill in front of us. Also, as I was doing my research on this, I was wondering about, it does denote the commercial uses, things like that, but does it also give you a tax break for new construction on existing businesses? For example, if someone did an addition, things like that, does it provide for internal economic development, is what I'd like to call it, growing your businesses that are there, or is it just for brand new stuff? That's a major question I have. The date I found on here was December 31st, and that the assessors have time. But that's a lot of the questions I had that were not answered, and I was trying to find all the cross-referencing RSAs. This was written for Coos County, I believe Berlin.
Yep.
In that area specifically, because I do remember this coming about. But that would be some of my questions that I think, as to respect Councilor Koloski's need for more information, that's some of the new information I would hope to find.
Okay.
Maybe our legislators could come and discuss this if they knew something about this as well, and what their discussions were on this.
Before we entertain a motion to table, I'd appreciate a moment of indulgence, a little bit. Not that I disagree with the motion, but I'd like to hear from City Manager McNutt, just regarding first thoughts, kind of what he's been thinking about. What's been going through your mind? You've obviously known this was out there.
I have. Quite frankly, my initial thoughts are, this is a premature discussion. This was not something that we were ready to bring before the council. It's something that Director Merrill and I are reviewing. It has a lot of broad implications, and it quite frankly is not something that we were ready to put forward for discussion at this time.
We would make the request, again, for the second meeting in September to have that information brought forward to the council.
That's an incredibly short timeline to be able to provide that information for the next meeting. Right.
And you're gone for a period of time, I understand that. Councilor Pope.
I was looking at that deadline of December 31st. It really isn't real applicable for this year. It's probably, I would think we could probably extend the timeline a little bit.
Move it into October,
Well,
November?
the timeline for information from the city manager, if I remember right, you were looking for what, 3-4 meetings from now? Or?
I don't know that I was looking for anything other than the second meeting in September, but have no problem moving it off a bit. I just don't want it to become lost in the shuffle as we gear up toward, anything to do with year end, if we have other items on the agenda that would take precedent.
I'd like to be able to give the city manager time to get the information together.
As long as we reach a position to where we can say this council has taken a vote, either yea or nay, and that we're on record, then I certainly don't have a problem with that.
Agreed.
Now,
I just want to make sure we make good.
Councilor Temple?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion around it, and I'm not sure that I fully understand it, but Is this an exemption for just the state portion of your tax?
This is an exemption for the local, school, and city or town portion. It does not apply to the state education tax, and it doesn't apply to the county tax. So of the 4 components, it only gives you the exemption for the two local pieces.
So it definitely has an impact on our schools,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
being the largest portion of our tax bill.
Yep.
It also has an a direct impact on property owners. I mean, when you rush off to think about it, okay, we will fill up our industrial park because we're going to offer a tax exemption to all these businesses.
Mm-hmm.
The increase in services and the ever growing budget in the community again lays back on the homeowner, the property tax of the homeowner. That's one feeling about it. By the same token, we would hate to lose businesses to, say, an adjoining community because they offer them a nice tax break, and oh, by the way, that's great. They don't offer any other services, police, fire, and as you know, we're a full-service community, and our taxes show it. So, for me, if we can't do the 27th, perhaps at the October 11th meeting, at least we could ask the manager and the Economic Development Office to come back and explain to us, a little more about this, a little more detail of what this is. Obviously, some of the implications that the mayor is concerned with, and maybe how it's worked out in Coos County up there. I have no idea, but if it can't be done the 27th, and all due respect, I know you're going to be out of town, at least if somebody could come back and say, I would throw out October 11th to do that, or sometime in October to have a workshop dedicated to this sort of thing, because I think a lot of people in the community think this is the best thing since sliced bread, and it may not be the best thing in Claremont's interest. So some of the pros and cons. So giving the manager a little space, I don't have a problem with that, I guess.
October is fine.
Sure.
Councilor Kowalski.
I would like city administration to have as much time as they need, because I equate this is a major decision for the community. I'd like to also have an opportunity to discuss this with the school board if it's something we're going to do. This is no different than throwing together a business plan, and by even thinking that or expecting the city manager to come back with something at short notice that would be a wise decision for us to move forward with is crazy. I'm okay with this even after October 11th, but as long as it's a plan that comes back with, this could have positive and negative. I'm not rushed on this. I understand it could have economic benefits. It could lure development. It could also hurt current people that are here. So I'm not rushed on this.
And I don't think, hearing the discussion, I'll speak from Mayor Lovett, I don't think she would feel rushed at all either. But again, the important thing is to make sure that this council has discussed what is out there and has taken a position, either yea or nay, on a proposal, because it is being discussed. There are studies, older studies, that I looked at some years ago when I spoke to Director Merrill about, wasn't it a shame that we didn't have this option available to us within New Hampshire? I know other communities in other states do. But there are articles and studies, again, dating back some years, that this is not a good thing long term. Might be a good thing short term, but long term it didn't have and didn't pan out for the benefits for communities in other states. Now, something may have changed in those studies in the intervening time period, but again, this has pros and cons, just as you've all stated. So I don't think, in some regard, I don't think we need a motion to table. If you feel we do, we'll certainly entertain it. But the idea was to get some discussion started and to at least have an initial discussion in public. Fair enough? Okay. The very next item is committee reports.